to On the Playing Field. I am your host, Coach Cheryl McCormick. Now let's get to it. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to On the Playing Field. I am your host, Coach Cheryl McCormick, owner and founder of Gravitational Performance and School of Sports Research Science. So welcome to episode 3. I can't believe it. 3 already. Oh my gosh, just little number 3. On the other podcasts that we have through Gravitational Performance, I think we have about 50, maybe 60 episodes. So this is a brand new podcast for those of you that are joining. However, the other podcast is it's a little more personal. It's easy flowing. I talk about the birds, the weather, but I also talk about sports and just all kinds of topics there. But it's a lot more casual. It's kind of like, go grab your coffee. Let's hang out and chit chat. Maybe I'll talk about the weekends and rolling in, because I think that one was Podcast Monday. But it's been some time since I've done that. So welcome. I'm really excited about today's episode because we're diving into something that so many athletes, coaches, and high performers struggle with, which is negative self-talk and the mental spiraling that follows when things just don't go as planned. You've trained perhaps for many hours, you hit the gym, the track, the pool, whatever your domain is. And yet that moment that you make a mistake, that inner critic up here goes into overdrive and does not stop. Perhaps you begin to replay every misstep, everything that you're doing, second guessing every single decision. And suddenly you're paralyzed by the fear factor, the performance fear, or the fear of failure. So today we're going to unpack why that happens, why it's so common among high-performing individuals, whether you're a coach, again, whether you're a CEO, whether you're in the military, whether you're an athlete, and what the science says and how you can train your mind just as tough, just as much as your body to pull yourself back from those mindsets. All right, so I want you to picture this as we roll into today's topic. You're perhaps maybe an elite swimmer at a major meet, and on the dive, your foot slips off the starting block. Can you imagine that? Just think about this. Picture yourself in that moment. Maybe picture the fear that you're going to go through. Okay, so again, you're an elite swimmer at maybe in a major meet. Okay, a major event. All right. And on the dive, your foot slips off the starting block. You finish the race, but you're off your personal best. So maybe you're off your PR by a full second. Okay. Immediately, your head fills with all of the self-doubt, all of the questions that we like to lead with. What ifs? What if I'd focus more on my start? What if I hadn't been so tired? Before you know it, you're freezing up, right? You're freezing up in warm-ups the next day. Worried, perhaps you'll make the same mistake over and over and over again. All right. Does this sound familiar? Maybe you're not a swimmer. Maybe you're a CEO and something has gone wrong before. Maybe you grabbed the wrong slide. Okay. Presented the wrong slide at the wrong time. All right. Maybe you're a teacher and you lost track of your thoughts because you were stressed out. Something else was going on in your life. Maybe you're a coach and you get challenged with a question that you really don't have the right answer to, and you freeze up in that moment. Okay, so again, does this sound familiar? I would say absolutely, even for myself, right? It happens to everybody. It's not just common in high performance situations, but it happens to everybody. And why? We got to think of the why. And the why can be so many things, so many factors. Whether it's a situation that has happened prior, it's self-doubt, it's the fear of failure, whether it's lack of sleep, lack of proper nutrition that really does help the brain function. We don't really see that. It's a feeling over a period of time. Or perhaps it's a stress that you've got something else going on. Okay, so again, whether you're a track star, a coach, a soccer player, CrossFit, athlete, that runaway thought of why did I do this? What ifs? Why did I focus on this and not that? Okay, can actually remove that confidence and wreck your performance. All right, so why do we spiral? Well, let's get a bit scientific here, okay? So the amygdala, the brain's threat detector, lights up. Again, this lights up, illuminates when we feel fear or failure, or what we like to say in sports, fear of failure, okay? It can hijack our prefrontal cortex, which was talked about in the first two parts series of basically episode 1 and 2. All right, which is the part of the brain that's responsible for reason and decision making. That's to help us survive, triggering fight, flight, or freeze. Okay, but in sports and high pressure environments, this gets a false alarm. Okay, so the amygdala gets a false alarm when this happens. Again, during a fight or flight, the questioning moments, that fear of failure. Okay, so a missed free throw or a late submission on a project, or I, made a mistake and I said the wrong thing in that presentation. All right, it sees that as life or death scenario. Okay, and that floods us with stress hormones, and our focus becomes narrow to the mistake. Okay, tunnel vision, right? Solution, perhaps? Well, we need to train that survival alarm, that survival technique to stay calm under pressure. And we like to train that, especially in mental performance training, under pressure simulations or pressure scenarios through imagery training. And there's all kinds of different scenarios that we go through. And in this case, we also would say that to somebody who's maybe training in the military for a deployment, right? So think about that. How are they trained to be able to take pressure and to be able to go through fear, absolute fear, right? Things that we wouldn't even imagine in sports. But think about the high contact sports, the individuals that could come into contact with something that could physically harm them. Okay, so that's a completely different fear. However, we tend to dip into the fear altogether, and sometimes similar. Sometimes somebody's fear from making a former mistake can actually impact that individual, whether it's in sports or it's in business, okay, wherever it's at, maybe in your personal life, it can sometimes impact an individual the same way as somebody who is actually being impacted in a physical realm. Is my life going to be at risk? Am I going to come out of this alive? Okay. So we want to consider, well, how do we do this? What is our solution? And that is that we need to train that survival alarm that goes off in our body to stay calm under pressure. All right, so I want you to picture this as we roll into today's topic. You're perhaps maybe an elite swimmer at a major meet, and on the dive, welcome to EPA 01, Sports Career Pathways, Exploring Professions in Athletics. I'm excited to share an incredible opportunity for anyone interested in exploring the dynamic world of sports careers. Our upcoming course is going to be open this summer and is designed to be your gateway into understanding the vast array of professions in sports and athletics. Key details to this course is that it is titled EPA 01. For that, it's Sport Career Pathways, EPA Exploring Profession in Athletics. So it is the first half in a 4-week segment, and there's a second half that will be next year, another 4 weeks. It is going to be open this summer, and registration is currently open. It will be closed soon once all of the spots have filled up. Whether you're just starting out in middle school or already in high school or maybe early college, there's a spot for you. So 7th through 8th grade track is tailored for younger students who are getting a first look at what a sports career might offer. And then we have 9th through 12th grade and early college track, which is perfect for those who really are ready to dive deeper and explore a range of athletic career pathways. So don't miss this opportunity to kickstart your journey into that fascinating world of athletics. If you're ready to explore various professions from sports management to athletic training and beyond, make sure to register today and take that first step towards an exciting career in sports. Thanks for listening, and be sure to check out more details on our website. Let's get ready to explore, learn, and launch our careers into athletics together. Okay, so I want you to imagine, we're going to play scenario here, and perhaps you're a coach, maybe somebody in a position that can understand from your perspective, maybe coaching or directing or guiding or leading somebody in a situation like this. Perhaps you're not an athlete per se, but you can understand and take the information from this scenario and apply it to your professional life. So imagine a college cross country runner. That was me, right? Who hits a rough patch. That was me many, many times. So this cross country runner maybe consistently is sharing personal best. Okay. She or he, we'll just say she is PRing. Okay. We'll talk about me. We'll talk about me. She is consistently talking about her personal best. And then one race, she struggles up a hill, losing her pace. All right. Immediately her self-talk starts to kick in. I can't handle this. Everybody is starting to pass me. Maybe I'm not meant to be here. Okay. I'm starting to self-doubt. A lot of self-doubt is starting to creep into my head. All kinds of things, depending on what the eyes begin to focus on, left and right, looking forward, looking sideways, even maybe looking back, which we know we shouldn't do. Okay. So I can't handle this. That negativity, that negative self-talk doesn't just take away this athlete's confidence. It drains her physically. Why? Well, because it's a mental muscle that's being used constantly, draining the energy and the thought process and thinking and thinking and thinking. A lot of times when an athlete is just cruising and doing it and not having that doubt, they're not really thinking. Their body is doing the work, and they're preserving that mental muscle, that preserving that mental energy to actually be able to just go through it. They've trained themselves to the point where they're not putting that stress on themselves. Okay. But when we're placed under certain situations where we're challenged and we're not ready for that challenge, that's a different scenario. So muscles tighten throughout the body. Breathing becomes shallow. Okay, again, instead of that diaphragmatic, that deep belly breathing, getting that oxygen all the way through the body, it just becomes very shallow breathing, which causes lightheadedness, lack of energy, lack of ability to keep going. Okay. And every step becomes really heavy, almost like, this athlete could be wading in water. So, what if she could catch that negative loop, that negative cycle that's going through her mind, and actually label it and redirect? Okay. Redirect, reframing thoughts here, her energy into what she can control. Again, can we do this out of nowhere for the first time ever? No, it needs to be trained. All right, so we call this breaking the cycle, which is a cognitive labeling process, redirecting, reframing thought process. One of the simplest, most powerful tools you can start using today, if you're a coach or an athlete, is cognitive labeling. It's as straightforward as saying, there's the fear talking again. There she is. There he is, right? I see the self doubt trying to creep in. Okay. So labeling actually interrupts that automatic cascade of negative thinking and reactivates that prefrontal cortex. Studies actually show that athletes who practice labeling experience less anxiety and better focus, attention to detail, focus to attention during competition. Competition means high stress situations, high stress environments. So, next time you, or maybe your athletes or the individuals that you are in charge of, hit that wall and you see it, you hear about it, mentally step outside of the drama that's going on, that mental loop, that negative self talk loop, and name it. Okay. So that tiny act of awareness can actually create a space to choose a more helpful thought instead of the negative self talk. And from there, you can also go into self talk and reframing again, renaming, redirecting, right? Redirecting the thought process into positive cues and positive framework and rephrasing. And I talked about that in episode 1. So if you haven't checked that out, please do so, because it's very beneficial if you're an athlete and you're just jumping into this episode because you saw the title and thought it would be beneficial. Great. It is very beneficial to your performance. Coaches and everybody else listening in as well. All right, go ahead and check out the cues and understanding, what are these cues? What are these mantras? And this right here is where you would go in and cycle that cue and put it to work. All right, so now let's talk about compassion, which is not the softness or letting yourself off the hook compassion. It's about treating yourself with the same kindness and encouragement that you would offer somebody else, like your teammate. Okay. So research highlights that athletes who cultivate this self compassion rebound faster from mistakes and actually can view setbacks as opportunities to learn. Again, opportunities to learn. Can you believe that? All right. So instead of saying something to yourself like, I'm so stupid, which we hear a lot of younger kids say today, I hear it more often than I want to. And it's unfortunate because I never picked it up until getting into this industry and working as a sport professional under the guidance of performance development, psychological development, etc. But I hear it, even not from athletes, but just students in general. Okay. And it's young ages that are saying it. And I do believe that over time, like most other things, when we train ourselves to speak that way over frustration, that we tend to say that the older we get. I'm so stupid. All right. So we want to consider, instead of saying something like, I'm so stupid, you say, everyone stumbles. This is actually a part of my growth. But you got to own it. You can't just say stuff like that and then think that you're going to be able to say it and then feel it. All right. So instead of saying, I'm so stupid, well, you can say, everyone stumbles. This is a part of my growth, or this is a part of growth in general. Okay. But we like to put my in there. So we indicate, this is me. This is something that I'm going through. While everybody stumbles at some point, yes, but this is my journey. Okay, athletes, if you're listening here, coaches, everybody who's in leadership positions, this is something that we can all do. So that shift not only soothes that process, right, that amygdala, but also fuels that resilience. So a gymnast. Picture a gymnast, Simone Biles, our favorite, right? And perhaps you have other favorites. Maybe nailing a complex routine in practice, all right? But then faltering in front of the judges. We know that we can't judge that, okay? We can't judge that. The you and the I and the next person that doesn't do that sport, incredibly difficult. In the locker room, her coach sees her head down. Common practice. Head down, shoulders slumped. Just like this, right? The athlete keeps replaying that wobble on the beam. Just a cycle of, again, that vicious loop that we go through. The slight hop on the landing, okay? Maybe the foot off. So the coach gently steps in and says, hey, what did you learn from that misstep? Again, what did you learn from that misstep? So by redirecting that attention from self-criticism, because a good coach knows when their athlete is mentally spiraling and staying quiet or getting short with other people and sitting off. And I want all my coaches in here listening to maybe say, take note. This is something that I can do and take notes on, is identifying and observing. Observation is key as a coach, as any type of leadership position in general. Okay. So again, this redirecting of the attention from that self-criticism that the athlete that she was about to go through or has been going through, to curiosity about asking that question, hey, what did you learn from that misstep? The athlete then can shift from negative rumination to constructive analysis and say, oh, well, what did I learn from that? Instead of, I can't stand myself. I can't believe I did that, and deteriorating. All right. That's a sort of mental pivot that separates a good athlete from great ones. Great ones are the ones that are standing out and saying, stop it. I'm not doing this today in here, and shifting. So, well, maybe you're an athlete in here, but my coach might not come in and see that happen. Who stops me? You do. You stop yourself. And that is a process that takes time. All right. So maybe reframing through the if and the then. All right. So onto a tactic called implementation intentions, or the if and then planning. So it's a structured way to pre-decide how you're going to respond to actual triggers. All right. For instance, if I miss my first shot, then I will take a deep breath, refocus on my target, and trust my training, trust in my process. Research in sports psychology actually reveals that athletes who form clear if and then plans, so if or then, okay, plans, perform with greater consistency under pressure situations or pressure environments. So it's like building a mental autopilot that really can kick in when the heat is on, when the stress level is high. All right, so we want to engage the body to quiet the mind. We all can benefit from this. Am I right? I'm right. All right, sometimes our mind needs to be grounded in the body. Okay, when you think about that, sometimes our brain, the way it treats us, we treat ourselves, feels like it's completely detached and it's somewhere else, and our body is working complete opposite. Like they are just going like this, complete opposite, repelling from each other, like just not even cool with each other. sometimes we need to be grounded. We need to bring it back and be as one functioning unit. Okay, so progressive muscle relaxation, also known as PMR, box breathing, or a cycle of breathing that you like, or maybe a quick dynamic stretch can disconnect your process of spiraling thoughts, again, going on that loop, and recenter your focus and get that body and mind connected again. So, box breathing, inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4 counts, exhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, simulates that vagus nerve. Okay. And then activating the parasympathetic system, which calms that amygdala. All right. So it's a tool that military personnel, some of our very high performing athletes, yes, athletes. If you haven't heard that before, check it out. Military athletes, 100% training on all kinds of levels to ensure their safety, as well as being in the most stressful environments out there. All right. But it's a tool that our military personnel use for high stress situations. And it works just as well on the field, on the court, on the track, in the office, at home, wherever you are at. All right, so another scientifically backed technique is guided imagery, my very favorite. If you know me, Coach McCormick, and a lot of my athletes that listen to this are like, yep, doing that right now. That's part of the training right now. We focus on guided imagery and so many different types of imagery too. It's not just specifically one style, kinesthetic, rapid movements, stress related, what have you. So all kinds of really engaging, intense, insightful, structured imagery. So you can spend about 5 to 10 minutes for basic imagery a day, imagining yourself maybe handling a mistake smoothly. That's great, right? How do we do that? Well, you got to keep yourself calm. That is the idea here. And then maybe you drop the ball because, who doesn't just drop the ball? We drop the ball all the time. Okay, so again, we're going to go through this and maybe spend 5 minutes to 10 minutes imagining yourself handling a mistake smoothly. So, again, maybe this is something like you're dropping a ball in basketball. You can pause, take a breath, and then make an amazing play, okay, to recover. All right. So imagining that process, again, this takes time. Imagining that process is great. But then you might be like, well, Coach McCormick, yeah, I do that, right? I do that already a lot. And I imagine myself to be so amazing, especially when I have headphones in and I'm listening to my style music and it's totally getting me in the vibe. It's amping me up. It's getting me ready. And all of a sudden I think I'm this person, right? When we see people say, this is what I think I look like, or this is who I think I am when I'm doing this movement, working out in the gym, running, etc. And it's just not lining up. This is the reality. This is what I think I look like. Okay, so again, we want to reverse that process and maybe we drop that ball, pause. The idea is we're taking in a breath, going through our breathing cycles, getting rid of the thought process that we want to tell ourselves, oh my gosh, you suck, you're horrible, I can't believe this. Instead, we're taking a pause, we're breathing, box breathing maybe, and then make an amazing play to actually recover. And in our mind's eye, whether it's internal or external, we're seeing ourselves execute that. And now that's a totally different side of imagery that I'm not going to go in this episode, but that is a very detailed process of imagery that we go through in creating scenarios or recreating former scenarios in the mind's eye and replicating, utilizing all kinds of senses and stimulation through that. But at the most basic level, yes, 5 to 10 minutes, right? 5 to 10 minutes of us just closing our eyes, breathing, relaxing, envisioning a mistake and how we handle the mistake. So that, Oh, that is the point of why we would do it. All right, so neuroimaging studies actually show that the brain, this up here, activates similar regions when you vividly imagine an action as when you physically do it. Now, what is that vivid? That means a clear, very, very detailed, very concise. If I asked you to close your eyes right now, and I want you to imagine that you're outside in a serene field, and all there is you standing there from an internal perspective. Okay, as you're breathing, there's a little cool breeze on you, but some warmth from the sunshine, nothing that's burning your skin. It's just the perfect day. And then I tell you there's maybe one or two puffy white clouds in the sky. Okay, blue skies, nothing else but yourself and green grass in which you're standing on. In that green grass, you look down and you could see the blades of the grass sharp, pointed at the very tip. You could see the blades in the grass. In fact, you can see the grains inside each grass, straight up and down. That grass has different hues of light and some dark, but all together it blends together to make that beautiful, bright green field. Okay, and that pulling that vivid, and now open your eyes, come back to me here. You can see different detail, and that the vivid picture that you create in your mind's eye is exactly what you practice. Now, we go through imagery, and professionals will teach you the different styles of imagery. It's not just closing my eyes and imagining something and I can't really see it. Something that I was formerly studying and still kind of working through is aphantasia, and the inability to actually perform certain types of imaging in the mind's eye, due to different reasons. Okay, and neuroscientists discovered that during surgery, and that's fairly new, something that we're studying in sports psychology and psychological aspects of performance and development. And that is part of it, is understanding, how do we see that? How do we pull those senses in? Okay, but for right now, this is something that anybody can do without going through a very detailed, structured lesson, a scenario-based training with a sports psychologist or mental performance coach, right? Anybody can close their eyes and see exactly what I just said for the most part. You might not have full color. You might be able to just imagine it and not really throw it out there on a movie display screen as though you're sitting back eating popcorn and watching it. All right. So, what we want to focus on here, though, is that regions of your brain actually can be stimulated as real life situations. Okay. And that is key here. Visualization and mental rehearsal, when put together properly and executed properly, can have very significant beneficial impacts. But I want to say again, it is imperative that you understand, if you're an athlete in here or a coach, that it is imperative that you stay consistent in this process, and that you understand that you need to be working with somebody to assess proper stages of imagery and when it's time to move you to the next phases.